And you all doubted Sony, didn't you? I did myself as well in regards to the Sony A7V release. But then in the back of my head, I thought, there's no way. Sony, the manufacturer of all these great sensors, why would they release a subpar product for the release of their A7V? Figured it was quite unlikely, and it turns out, based on some of the information we have now, it's not going to be a recycled sensor, thankfully. So if you're a Sony user, I'm sure you're happy to hear this news. Breaking down some of the most recent news, it looks like it's going to be using a very similar to what we have in this Nikon Z6 III and also the most recent Lumix. I believe that was the S2. I think that's their faster readout sensor. So with this new sensor, you can expect 4K 60 with no crop. And that was one of the reasons why I went with this Nikon Z6 III that I just showed you guys. Having that faster sensor for videography means that you don't have to crop in as much. A lot of people were using actually APS-C lenses in order to account for that 1.5x crop that we saw on the A7V, and was awful, particularly for people that were in the line of work of industries like real estate, videography. It was a pretty big hassle, and that actually had a lot of people using their cameras at only 1080p. So before I go any further in this, I want to also share with you guys that I am posting these videos now in short content. So if you don't have very much time to watch these live discussions, sometimes they can run a little long. Today will be quite short though. It's just a quick little news bit, but I will be offering that from now on. So stay tuned for that. If you have a busy schedule and you want to get news in a nice condensed format, I'm now posting on Instagram and TikTok as well, over and above these YouTube short style mediums. Okay, so what's interesting about this partially stacked sensor, this is new silicon. You have a sensor that is being developed at 33 megapixels, the same as the A7V. So that is particularly interesting because this would be the highest megapixel stacked sensor on the market currently, with Nikon and Panasonic shooting at only 24 megapixels max. In my opinion, 33 megapixels is nice, but it's not really necessary. I think with a sharp enough lens, 24 megapixels is more than enough. Even 18 megapixels. Most people will be able to coast with that in their camera, but this does bring much better, higher speed performance in terms of burst shooting. It's just incredible what my Nikon Z6 III can do. So now this is kind of similar to the performance you would get with a camera like the A1, but much cheaper. Sony has been known for having some of the best dynamic range in the industry as well, so it's going to be really curious. Sony also has some of the best dynamic range in the game. Them developing their sensors, they usually have an upper leg over and above everyone else. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the dynamic range, what kind of dynamic range they can offer with cameras like this Nikon Z6 III having somewhat poor dynamic range at times. For example, like their A7 II, and I mean probably even the A7. The Z6 II or the Z6 I probably have potentially better dynamic range than this camera. It's still more than enough, in my opinion. There's only a few instances where I really found it to be a big issue, but expect with this new Sony one for them maybe to have some tricks up their sleeve in regards to the dynamic range of that sensor. So now, people are guessing that this should be around a 30 FPS electronic burst shutter speed, or even 10 FPS mechanical. Now, this is just speculation at this time, but it's probably likely that we're going to see around that. We're not going to hit the same speeds as the new Canon R6 Mark III, which had electronic shutter speeds of 40 FPS. So again, this is just speculation. We're not entirely sure exactly what to expect with that, but should be around there. In my opinion, 30 is more than enough, so I think most people will be happy with those specifications in their camera. Now, yeah, as I mentioned before, one of the biggest issues a lot of people had when doing video work, especially in industries like real estate, photography and videography, was that crop in 4K 60. Not having this 1.5x crop is going to be major for a lot of people and really could sway a lot of buyers in that sense. And that's just kind of how the industry is moving these days. Most cameras are able now to shoot 4K 60 with no crop, which is great, as being someone in that industry. So, let's just see. What do we have next here? Another feature that has been seen in terms of overall features that are being added to this A7V. There are some images that show it will offer a high-res composite RAW mode, and it seems like this is a push towards more computational imaging features, and this could be great for landscape shooters, architecture. I believe it would just blend different exposures together, kind of like an HDR setting, so that is interesting. We have some shots here now. I'm going to pull up showing this. Okay. So now here, this is from Sony Alpha Rumors, so go check him out. Thank you for the information. So yeah, this is it right here in the photo mode, number 6, the composite RAW shooting. Now looking over at some of the other images that have been released as of recent on these bodies. We have this one here, also from Sony Alpha Rumors, showing that 33 megapixel sensor, and this has been something we've seen actually for quite a while now. This is somewhat old news at this current moment. And now the final one. This is another final look at the camera body that we should be expecting on the A7V. All right. Let's go back into my notes now for today. So looking at this body design, this will have a free angled 3.2 tilting touch LCD. I'm not sure exactly the specifications and overall nit number of that screen. Hopefully it has a higher resolution than some of the recent cameras like the A7 IV. They have an improved EVF on this. People are speculating around 5.6 million dots, which would be in line as well with my Nikon Z6 III. Having a better EVF will be important for a lot of people, so that's a great addition if we ended up seeing that. We should expect around 8 stops of IBIS inside the camera with dual CF Express Type A plus SD slots. So look out for that. And then also this will feature dual USB-C ports with no longer micro USB port. This also features dual USB-C ports with no longer having any sort of micro USB ports. Thankfully, no one wants those in their camera anymore, right? This will also have a new AI chip, so I would expect... Oh, actually, looking at this, it seems as if the new AI chip that is in this is actually the same as the A1 II, and there is no C5 button, and this will be using the same MPFC 100 battery. Okay, now the price. What is a new camera release if the price is awful? It looks like this actually has a not too bad price on it. It is a little higher than the previous, but the expected price on this camera is $3,000 US, and we should expect some of these final details and a potential sale date of December 2nd. Pre-orders should be launching immediately on that day, so I would buy your orders as soon as possible. Sony Alpha pre-orders thinks that this will be a very limited batch before Christmas. With all the time, though, that Sony has had, I would have expected that they would have potentially a little more... I would have expected that they had maybe a little more stocks and... Let me say that again. I expected that they would have had more stock overall with all the setbacks that they've had as of recently. So I'm not sure whether or not that is true or not with it being limited stock. I expect it actually to be decent considering the time that they've had to develop this camera and all the different pushbacks and overall date. There are also some lenses in the roadmap coming up pretty soon. You have the 100 to 400 f4 GM, the 100 to 400 G with a variable aperture. This will be a much cheaper counterpart to that lens. And then also an ultra-wide f2 GM zoom. And that is something that would be particularly interesting for me coming from Nikon. I love shooting with ultra-wides. I expect it's going to be really heavy, though, and very expensive. So look out for that in the near future. Sony seems to be like... let me say that again. Sony appears as if they are going on a bit of a run at the end of the year to the very start of next year. It seems like they have quite a few interesting releases lined up. So... look out for those releases. I think they're going to shut up a lot of haters in the near future with some of their innovative releases that they'll be coming out with somewhat soon here. Now, most of these sources are quite verified apparently, so you should be quite hopeful that we should expect to see these. Everything seems to be pretty well in order in terms of this overall news. Okay. Oh, look at that. Looks like my Sony Ace. Sorry, I'm talking Sony and I'm thinking DJI. It appears as if my DJI Action 6 finally arrived today. One of the first people I would imagine that have received the camera that's not in China due to some of the pushbacks. So look forward to an wow. Now, my mind is Sony and I'm thinking DJI. Look forward to an Action 6 video potentially tomorrow. I'm going to try and get it out as soon as possible, covering some of the details a lot of people have missed with their Action 6 reviews. Oh, wow. That is confusing. Anyway, so let's just top off my overall thoughts on this A7V camera. I'm sure it's going to be innovative. Sony has done a really great job as of recent, actually, at meeting the demands of customers. They develop most of the sensors in the modern market, so there's no reason that they would release a subpar product with their somewhat flagship model when they're the ones at the top of the sensor game. So I really didn't expect anything less than this, personally. I think a lot of people are going to be happy with this camera, and you just have to kind of decide whether or not you need that 33 megapixels or if 24 is okay. Nikon Z6 III is being sold at what, like $2,100 now in the US, and you can use the Sony lenses. Personally, I'm a Nikon shooter. I much prefer Nikon over Sony, but both will be pretty interesting cameras, and I think if you pick either or even Panasonic, you're going to be happy. Really, any of these cameras you're going to be happy with. It's just whether or not they work within your specific needs. For real estate videographers, this looks like it's going to be a good one, especially if it can meet people's demands in regards to having a decent dynamic range, something that Sony has excelled at for many, many years now in their full frame lineup. Okay, well, that is all for today. I'm really happy that you guys came to join me on this conversation about some of this new Sony news. I will be releasing a shorts video on this, so if you want to check that out in the future, I would love to see you over there as well on my shorts videos. Anyways, thank you so much. If you have any more news, just let me know. I have email on my YouTube account, devinzachariasmedia@gmail.com. I'd like to hear any new information that you guys have about any future releases. That is all. Okay, thank you guys. Take care. Bye.